It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be doing the next episode in the Nuzlocke challenge. So, per last time's votes, we are going to be moving on to Strawberry Crepe Cookie. And seeing as we lost in 7-1 with Eclair, we'll be moving down to 622 for Strawberry Crepe. And we will start from there, and we will see how far we can get. So what is your thoughts? Do you think Strawberry Crepe is going to be able to handle? Do you think that the damage resistance from her skills is going to give a good chance? Should we run specific treasures for her? I think, honestly, this time, just because I want to see her ability of damage resistance firing off so fast, I think we should run the Jelly Watch and see how that works. And let's give the cooldown so that her skill goes off as much as possible. Because she already has a really high base attack. If we look at her info, 21,000 is not a shabby number. In comparison to Eclair, who we ran last time, with 51,000 with the Searing. But there was not nearly much damage resistance. So we can do quite well with the damage resistance from Strawberry Crepe, and we'll see how well the Jelly Watch holds up for her abilities firing off multiple times. So let's give it a run. So we're going to be starting with 6-22 since we died at 7-1. And as you can see, our damage is already plenty good. They've got the shields, but we are barely taking much chunks of damage at all. And we are moving right through. And Strawberry Crepe has always been pretty good at handling both defense and waves of enemies. As you can see, she's still taking good damage, but her overall damage resistance skill is helping her not take a terrible amount in comparison to what Eclair was taking. And I think what I love about Strawberry Crepe the most is that it gives the entire team damage resistance. So it's not just a self-promoting buff from the cookie, but rather a team benefactor. When Strawberry Crepe first came out, she was super strong because there wasn't really a lot of ways to counter her at that point, at least not that much people could think of, because that damage resistance was just making so many teams so powerful in surviving so long in battles. And she's still a pretty important cookie when it comes to other team setups. And so I think that overall she's been really powerful and really helpful in a lot of the different team builds. So let's see how she handles 6-23. For a long time I was running her with solid almonds, just to give her the maximum amount of damage resistance possible, so that she could survive as long as possible too. But after a lot of discussion with my guild members and how they run her, the cooldown toppings just run so much better on her. Funnily enough, they are a higher power increase with cooldown than when you equip something like Searing toppings. And I believe that that raw potential that is brought out from those toppings is the reason for that. But overall, it's just the cooldown toppings have done so much more for her than what the almond toppings were doing. And you can see that here. She's fighting off a full-on boss and a little minion for the boss as well. And still doing great because the damage resistance means that just lower chances of getting hit hard. There isn't critical resistance, so if any criticals do happen to strike on us, that would make a difference. But we still really did well in that match. So I think we'll do pretty good. The real question is, do you think that she will get all the way past 7-1? Like, will she be able to actually survive past the point where most of our cookies have been perishing? Tell me in the comments if you even think we'll get to that point, or if we'll even get to 7-1. Maybe she'll perish in the last mode of World 6 in dark mode. Because you got to remember, we are in dark mode, so we are fighting a harder challenge. This is taking into account, though, my cookie bonds, my lab upgrades, and my guild perks. But I can tell you my labs, I have about level 5 on all the cookie lab upgrades, which is pretty good, but it's not maxed. I have all the cookie bonds because almost every single cookie except legendaries and ancients have been 5-star maxed. I take that back. Except for ancients and legendaries, all of my cookies have been 5-star maxed. So I have every cookie bond there that is possible for attack, HP, and defense buffs. So that is why Strawberry Creepe's attack is what it is on my end, where it might be different for you. She did take a really good beating from that team there. But those will make a difference. As far as my guild perks, I don't have many perks that are in PvE mode. Most of the guild perks are PvP and guild boss. But those still do take play in this challenge. So please consider that if you're running any Nuzlocke challenges or running any tests or battles yourself. There are some different there's some different things to think about when running those. So we are having a little bit of trouble with the shielded enemies here. We're able to beat them, of course, but they are giving us the best knockback potentials. Yeah, because Strawberry Creepe can't really break down shields very easily, unless the attack power's high enough, of course. But since we went with the watch here instead of the scroll, we're not necessarily doing extra attack, but rather faster skill activations. And another reason I didn't choose the scroll is that I would really like to start running some tests that showcase teams that work, that don't require the scroll. At the current point and the current meta, a lot of the time scroll is just an automatic include in all builds, and I understand why. It increases attack, it increases healing capabilities, but I feel like there's something we're missing, something that's being overlooked when it comes to the treasures, because with the speed comp you don't really need the jelly watch. You can run scroll, robes, and scythe, and your damage output is so hard and so fast that you don't care if you have even a second skill activation, because you should have wiped out the team by that point, or your cookies are moving fast enough where it's not going to make a big enough difference, at least in that setup and build. So I feel like that the more our treasures are diversifying into different comp builds and different setups, I feel like the more likely we can use something besides the attack scroll as an automatic put in for treasures. Now, I don't necessarily think that commons and rares are going to outplace the scroll. That would be kind of weird if they were to release a rare treasure or even a common treasure that would do better for all teams than the scroll. But I think it's more that there's some specialized comps that we haven't put together yet that might not just need the scroll. Yet again, I have to think of what would really benefit from it, because the scroll gives extra attack. Attack's good in every situation, since that's the main thing you're doing is you're attacking. But then again, maybe the healing team can benefit better from all healing treasures. Technically, yes, the scroll does give better healing power, but at the same time, maybe the staff and the monocle would do better, because you're just getting all that healing all at once rather than you know, some healing from cookies that can be stunned, and cookies that can be altered and debuffed and things like that. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about with how the meta's changing, is because if the cookies can be stunned, they can be shut down, they can be locked down, they can be frozen, you know, if all that can happen, but treasures can be passive or some with cooldowns, they can't be altered from the cookies, at least not yet. Obviously, if they release something in the future, maybe it could happen, but right now it can't. And so maybe the healing team is like the closest thing I can think to start that could benefit from a non-scroll build, where a lot of the other teams kind of pull from it because they're just trying to dish out as much damage as they can. Now, of course, I guess you could build a team that solely focuses on health and defense and not any worry about wiping out the enemy team, but those would be stall teams. And I don't think stall teams have a big place in the meta just yet, because you don't get trophies and points for draws. So I'm not certain if that does pique anyone's interest as a stall team. I've seen a couple been built before. I've built one myself on accident, just testing, and it was interesting seeing it stall out, but it did have the scroll in there as the treasures. So I don't know if it's a completely viable option in battles, but maybe it would make a difference in modes like Alliance or maybe in PvE. But I guess the problem is probably not PvE, because PvE is mostly timed battles, where Alliance you can go forever, so maybe that would be the mode that it would work with. As you just saw, though, in 6-27, we almost lost. Strawberry Creepe damage resistance was the only thing that kept us alive, because those shielded enemies and those knockbacks were really hammering into us. But this is the boss level 628. If we can just beat this, then we will get to the 7-1. And this is without the attack scroll. This is just with the Jelly Watch. So obviously with the attack scroll, we'd be able to defeat some of these enemies a little bit easier. But in comparison, we would also not be having as fast as an activation for our skill to keep giving us continued resistance. So that is something to consider too, because the resistance only lasts 7 seconds from Strawberry Creepe. After that, there is no damage resistance other than what is on your toppings. If you don't have damage resistance on your toppings, you are taking full damage. So what's also interesting is that there is a cap of 85% for damage resistance. You cannot get higher than that. So if you have Strawberry Creepe on the team and someone who has like 51% maxed out almond toppings, they are actually wasting 15%. Yeah, 15% damage resistance that just is wasted when Strawberry Creepe ability is active. Now you can argue like, well, yeah, so not during those 7 seconds you have 50%, and during the 7 seconds you have the maximum capped percent. And that is a way to think about it. But in my opinion, I think that with Strawberry Creepe on the team, if you have her built with a cooldown and built really well, I think that you can actually not run almond toppings and damage resistance on your cookies, because she can provide that. And instead you can run some extra HP and maybe some attack power. Oh, we're running out of time. We've only got 2 seconds. Ooh. Okay, so Strawberry Creepe did not make it through to World 7-1. In fairness, we did not give her the attack scroll. So if we had given her the attack scroll, we can just run to see the difference. We can see if the attack scroll would have been the make or break treasure there. I'm pretty sure it will be, but we'll just check it just to be sure. So the Old Pilgrim Scroll at level 12, 59.7% attack. We just ran out of time. If we had more time, we would have 100% done it. But let's see the big difference here. If we'll perish because of the attack skill speed, or if we will be able to just push through because of the attack power. Because if you see now, without the Jelly Watch, her skill is a 12-second cooldown instead of an 8-second cooldown. So that is 4 seconds that we are vulnerable to full-on damage that we're not resisting from her skill. Where with the Jelly Watch, we were almost always at 50% damage resistance. Almost always. So we may take more damage here. But, in fairness, because of the attack scroll, we also might destroy enemies faster, therefore not dying. So it's an interesting comparison, and one that I'm willing to make with the video with you guys to see how it makes a difference. And this might just prove more so why the attack scroll is something we can't get rid of for a time until a treasure comes out that can change it or replace it. Or maybe we just need enough cookies that have a different playstyle rather than just full-on attack. But we can see here that the scroll did make a difference. I'm not surprised. An epic treasure versus a common one didn't really necessarily surprise me. So we at least know for a fact that that allowed her to get through 6-28. But we will come back to her again on the next rotation once we get through everybody. And we will let her run the scroll next time. And the rule is if a cookie perishes at a certain stage, the first run through, the second time they get ran and we change treasures, they get to pick up from that stage. So we can see if any treasure makes a difference at that point so that they don't have to replay through. But anything you guys want to see, any cookies you want to vote for, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for stopping by and have a wonderful day.